Vermont August 17th, County Road North to a stealth site. This will be a 5-day backpacking trip from County Road North to Stratton/Arlington Road. My sister and her husband had dropped us off on County Road, and our camper is at the Stratton-Arlington Road parking lot. We had done this section from here to the Massachusetts border in 2006. The day started out raining, but later turned sunny at around 3 o'clock when we got dropped off. There were no bugs with a nice cool breeze, which was better than we had expected it to be. A touch of fall was in the air with signs of fall foliage. The trail started off with a climb, and I did not have my trail legs yet with a backpack on my back, so I was struggling a little for our first day. We had only made about 3 miles on the trail today because of our late start onto the trail. We passed a power line and found a nice area near a swamp that had awesome fall color. I found some black raspberries here, however, most of it had already gone by. There was also some goldenrods and some asters here. I was feeling wiped out from the hike, as we had not had the backpack on since August last year, and it was quite heavier than I had remembered. This section of the trail, we will be camping for 4 nights in the woods, and it will be more days than we had done for many years. We had a nice dehydrated meal that we had made at home prior to the trip. Dave used his emberlit stove to heat up the meal. We had a nice view of field and a mountain from here, as the woods gradually got darker and we went inside our tent for the night. August 18th, Stealth Site North to a Stealth Site Pass, Congdon Shelter. It had rained from 4 o'clock to around 6 o'clock this morning. We woke up to a cold and wet tent and was so happy to have hot oatmeal, coffee, and a cup, a spruce tea, and some bunchberries. I had studied a wild edibles book before we left on this trip. The area was beautiful with a nice sunny sky and the fog lifting to reveal the mountain. A light wind had picked up, making it a nice day for a hike. Today my feet was hurting pretty bad, and Dave had twisted his ankle on a wet rock that he slipped on. We reached Consolation Peak and found a nice campsite here. It was just about 1.5 miles from where we had camped, and we had saw another one on our way up here. We passed Sucker Pond and followed a nice river up to Congdon Shelter. We stopped here and ate our lunch. It was a nice open cabin-style shelter with a window on each side. We filtered some water here and continued our hike up to Harmon Hill. We walked a path out to the view with a view of a distant mountain and a valley below. It was starting to get late, and we started to look for a place to set up our tent. Dave had found a path in the woods that had led to a stealth site with a stone fire ring. It looked like someone else had camped here this year. We set up our tent and ate our dinner before it got dark. It was nice and peaceful here for a while after we had got into the tent for the night. Suddenly I was awakened by a howling noise just outside the tent. My heart was racing, and I woke up Dave. The animal howled again, and we both sat up shocked. We had a wolf or a coyote right outside of our tent. We could hear its footsteps in the leaves as it was walking around the tent. We were both scared, as we did not know if it was calling for the rest of the pack to come over here. We sat up for a while, listening for more sounds near the tent. After some time had passed, Dave took the flashlight and got out of the tent. He said that whatever it was had moved away. I was still a little frightened that it might return. However, a lot of time had passed by, and I had finally fell back to sleep. August 19th, Stealth Site North to Little Pond Lookout Vista. We had an awesome experience last night, now that it is morning. First time we were ever that close to a wolf or a coyote. We packed up and headed back onto the trail. We immediately started down a very steep and rocky ledge to Route 9. After crossing Route 9, we went through an AT parking lot and crossed a stream on a metal bridge. The trail went through a split rock and then climbed up even steeper to Melville-Nauheim Shelter. We met an elderly thru-hiker at the shelter who looked confused as to which was north on the trail. I pointed in the direction of the trail going north, and he headed south. I did not think of anything about it until later on the trail we met another thru-hiker. He asked us if we had seen him. We told him that the elderly man was heading south. He told us that the hiker was his father and that he was heading the wrong way on the trail. He took off running down the trail to get him. The elderly hiker must have been at least a mile on the trail by now. We reached a power line with a great view and had met two more elderly thru hikers. The husband, Daddy Long Legs, and the wife, Baby Steps, were from Tennessee and hiking the trail south. They told us to call them when we reached the Tennessee section of the trail if we needed a ride to the trail. We reached Hell Hollow Brook, the official last water source on the trail for 7 miles. We will have to conserve water, 1 bottle for breakfast, 1 for dinner, 1 for washing up, and 1 for drinking. We set up camp near the top of Glastonbury Mountain, next to the lookout for Little Pond. It was a really nice sunny, clear day in an interesting area with lots of verbena flowers, gray birch, ferns, and calico asters. It was a beautiful experience here. It was a pristine campsite, a perfect night for camping with the sun setting as we made dinner. However, my feet still hurt, and I mean that it hurts a lot. Thru hikers were still hiking through as we were relaxing here, eating our dinner. One of the Green Mountain Ranger had stopped here and had checked on us and was checking to make sure that we followed the leave no trace principles. Dave, of course, told him that we always leave the woods the way that we had found it. The ranger seemed pleased with this and continued down the trail. August 20th, Little Pond Lookout, north to Stealth Site Pass. Kids Gore Shelter. I had slept really good last night. It was a very quiet night, and I had heard some owls in the distance, as you know. I love owls, so it had made the night very relaxing. We woke up to a sunny morning, but it had turned quickly to an overcast sky with an increase in humidity. It had looked like it would start to rain any second. We climbed up to Goddard's shelter, which was in a nice pine area. We had decided to push out 4 more miles to the next shelter, and we did not take a lot of water with us. Dave had filtered only the 2 water bottles in his pack. We passed a foundation of a cabin, past the tower. It appeared to be the remnants of the cabin that the caretaker stayed in. We had seen lots of other hikers at the top of Glastonbury Mountain going up the lookout tower. The mountain was once part of a ghost town, and the fire tower is a historical landmark. The tower offered panoramic views of 4 states: Massachusetts, New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire. We did not climb the tower due to the crowd of people at the tower, and we needed the energy to make the miles. Besides, it was very hazy out, and I doubted if we would see any views today. There were tons of hikers out today, some heading north and some heading south on the AT or the Long Trail. There was also some section hikers like us up here. We had hiked 4 hard miles up to the shelter, and it is 4 o'clock. We started our hike around 6 o'clock this morning. We were covered in sweat on this hike as we reached Kid Gore Shelter. The ice-cold mountain spring was the best and was very refreshing as we soaked our bandana in the water to cool ourselves off. Someone had told us on our way up here that there was a youth group up here and that they were acting very badly at the shelter. Yes, the youth group was very young, but were they really bad, or was the youth group there and had just moved on? We did not notice if anyone was here, or was the other hiker just joking around with us because of the shelter's name. We had planned to camp here tonight. However, the shelter and the campsites was crowded with other hikers, so we decided to continue on the trail and search for a stealth site to set up for the night. We filtered both of our water bottles at the spring and headed back onto the trail. I did not even bother to take any pictures of the shelter. We reached a power line clearing and found a place to put up our tent in the woods next to the power line clearing. It was not as nice as the past nights. It was a muddy area, but we did find a dry area. It was in a small area in the woods, so at least we had some tree cover. We were happy to be alone here and away from the crowd of all the hikers at Kid Gore Shelter. Dave had set up the tarp over the front of the tent as it is forecasted to rain in the morning. We had put some sticks under the tent so that we would have some dry sticks for our emberlit stove in the morning. We sat near the tent and played a word game. August 21st, stealth site north to Grout Pond Campground. We woke up to a rainy deluge. I mean that it looked like someone had just opened a water faucet and flooded the entire woods. The rain had started sometime late last night, and it had stopped for a while around 1 in the morning, as I heard a sound of little feet running around the outside of the tent, a mouse or a chipmunk. The rain had started back up around 3 o'clock. In the morning, I looked outside the flap of the tent to see how much water was around us, and found that luckily our hiking boots looked dried, the tarp had worked, and the ground under the tarp was still dry. The sticks were dry, and I started the fire in the stove and heated up some oatmeal for breakfast. We had to take the tent down in the pouring rain, and it was hell. We had to get everything in the backpack under the tarp to keep it all dry. And then we had to take down the tent in the pouring rain and packed it in Dave's backpack. Not an easy thing to do in the pouring rain. We headed out onto the trail, and the trail was a stream of water and deep mud. I always tried to find things in nature on all of our hikes to enjoy, but today I could not find anything, just pouring rain all around us. It was a hard descent to Stratton Arlington Road. It was muddy beyond belief, and everything was wet and slippery. We hiked on the trail in 6 inches of water that went over our hiking boots. The rain gear was so soaked that it just soaked through, as if we did not have any rain gear on at all. We reached Story Spring Shelter and stopped here to eat our lunch. Crackers and peanut butter. Yum, yum. Some through hikers, the hikers with the confused older man who had gone the wrong way, were here. They had 2 tarps covering the opening in the 3-sided shelter and were still in their sleeping bags. They said that they were staying here till around noon when the rain was expected to stop. We did not stay long at the shelter because we just wanted to get off the trail and into our dry camper. We were completely drenched and our hiking boots were soaked and covered with heavy mud, which made it more difficult to walk in. We crossed U.S. Service Road 71 and we entered a less muddy section of the trail. We crossed a nice bridge over a stream with a campsite on the other side, and later I found some black raspberry near the trail. They were delicious. A northbound through hiker passed us. We had seen lots of northbound through hikers on top of Glastonbury Mountain yesterday, but he was the first one that we had seen on the trail today in the rain. We tumbled out onto a dirt road, and I had looked down the road and saw our white truck in the parking lot. I told Dave that we were out and had reached Stratton Arlington Road. He was delirious from the long hike in the rain and had said no, it wasn't. He had said that it was U.S. Service Road 71 again. I pointed the truck out to him, and we were both so happy to be at the end of our backpacking trip. We had done a 5-day backpacking hike and were now out and will be staying at Gout Pond Campground tonight. We had found out during the night that a mouse had got into the camper. We could hear it moving around in the camper. So I had set up a mouse trap and hoped that it would not be crawling over us as we were sleeping. August 22nd, U.S. Forest Road 341 North to Stratton Pond Shelter. It had rain all night, and we woke up to a misty morning with light rain this morning, the second day of rain on the trail. Our boots were still wet, but at least we have dry clothing in the camper to wear. We parked at the gate for U.S. Forest Road 341 that was off of Stratton Arlington Road. A sign here marked this forest road, and we started our day hike up to Stratton Pond Shelter on this dirt road that went to the AT. I had loved all the wildflowers on the forest dirt road. We had passed where the AT crossed this dirt road to the top of Stratton Mountain. We are heading home today and do not have time to climb up to Stratton Mountain today. The AT crosses this road again, and then it heads to Stratton Pond Shelter. We passed a large pond that was on each side of the dirt road, an excellent habitat for moose. However, we never saw one here. It was about a 3-mile hike on this road before we reached where the AT crosses this dirt road, heading to Stratton Pond Shelter. And it had taken us about a half of an hour from the parking lot to reach it. We entered the AT heading to the north. We reached the Stratton Pond Shelter, which was a large wood-style shelter with a large porch and a picnic table. It was a very nice shelter, and a through hiker was in the shelter. We ate our lunch here and headed back onto the AT, and will continue heading north to a river crossing, which I had planned for our turnaround point for when we come back to come in from the other side. We reached Stratton Pond, where there was a lot of other hikers walking around the pond. We followed the trail to a sign that said that the trail was rerouted due to flooding on the trail. This section was also part of the Lye Brook Trail, which was closed due to the flooding because the entire trail was underwater. Luckily, the AT was able to be rerouted up the hill and back onto the AT again. The weather today was cloudy, and our hiking boots were still wet from yesterday's hike. We had hiked about a mile from the shelter to a small stream with some large rocks to cross on. We had ran out of time and was not going to make it to the river crossing that we were supposed to reach today. We will have to come back and redo this section again when we have more time to hike it. Sometimes when I plan a hike for the day, the mileage does not seem to be that long. However, this plan does not consider the difficulty of the trail, which can slow us down. A lot of our hikes, we only have so many hours to hike the trail, and that is all. We could be so close to our destination, but we do not know how much longer it is, so we just have no more time and have to go back.